If you make a product that makes it pleasurable for people to organize knowledge, that knowledge benefits everyone.
Oliver Starr is the Chief Evangelist for Pearltrees, where he's one of the earliest employees. Prior to this, Oliver was the Technology Evangelist for David Allen, creator of the Getting Things Done approach to productivity. Oliver was also the first employee at TechCrunch, an influential technology blog. A well-known activist on behalf of wolves and wild places, Oliver has been working directly with wolves for more than 25 years. His favorite personal use of Pearltrees is that it allows him to create and maintain one of the largest open libraries of wolf science, news, and information anywhere in the world, one that even includes selections for students. So Oliver, tell us more about who you are. What's this thing about wolves?
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I have a funny background. My granddad was a cowboy. My mom was an English teacher who probably should have been a poet. Dad was a lawyer, and I don't know how that ended up with a guy that liked living in the woods with wolves, but I guess I kind of have a cowboy soul, but I work in tech. So I fell in love with the animals when I was a kid, and it stuck with me my whole life. And now I would say I devote a substantial portion of my free time to trying to preserve what's left of our wilderness. And it's a nice match for what I do with Pearltrees, because the tools that we built are really excellent for organizing information and sharing it with a large audience, which is how I principally use our product.
Excellent. So do you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's funny that you asked that question, because being involved with wolves as long as I have, I know many, many people in that space. And one of my closest friends runs a sanctuary for people, for animals that have been adopted by people who thought a wolf would be a good pet. And it's rarely a good pet. I do have a wolf myself, but it's not a pet. And so these animals end up getting, tossed out, and they have nowhere to go. So I have a friend in New Mexico who runs a sanctuary for these wayward wolves, and George R.R. Martin is their largest benefactor, and they even have 2 packs of wolves named after all the characters in the show Game of Thrones.
Wow. The reason I mentioned Game of Thrones is because they have they have a couple of characters that can actually communicate with wolves, and they're very intelligent animals apparently. So you have a fascination with them, and you're using Pearltrees. Tell us more about Pearltrees. Let's talk about Pearltrees. How did you come up with that idea, or did you come up with that idea? Like, who came up with that idea?
No, our principal founder is a man named Patrice Lamotte. The company's based in Paris. I'm the only U.S. employee. And the underpinning idea of Pearltrees is incredibly simple. It's that it's really a pleasure to organize the things you know and care about. And you can see this in the physical world with people that love books or albums or art or, glass, crystal. I mean, there's many things that people love to collect and play with and display. And as more of our world becomes digital, those collections are going online, but the tools that let you really play with them are very primitive. And so Pearltrees is really an effort to make it easy and fun for people to organize collections about anything they like. And it's an open library. The basic product is completely public, and so anything you put there benefits the rest of the world. And so that's really our underpinning concept, is that if you make a product that makes it pleasurable for people to organize knowledge, that knowledge benefits everyone.
So this knowledge, are we talking about videos, audio? What kind of content is this?
So it's anything. You can. Pearltrees is one of the few products in the world where you can organize collections that include everything, and that doesn't mean just physical files, but also links to websites, notes that you create. And so it lets you create collections that have the broadest possible kind of content, everything from a link to a web page to an audio file right next to each other and part of the same collection. And so that gives you this incredibly broad and nuanced selection of objects to put in your collections and arrange how you want. And the other thing about Pearltrees that I think really distinguishes it from any other product is that you're not locked into some kind of a sorted metaphor. For example, on your file manager, you can sort your files by date or by size or by file type, but you can't say, I like this one, I want it here, and I want this one under it. You can't do ad hoc organization. And with Pearltrees, you can, time doesn't matter. It's what you want where, just like on a physical shelf where you want to arrange your books in the order you want. And that's one of the greatest, I would say, distinguishing features of Pearltrees is that you really can organize how you want.
We'll get into that a little bit more. Before we get into with that, who is the target audience for this? Like, are they teachers, students? Like, who are you appealing to?
So we didn't really build Pearltrees specifically as an educational product. In fact, I'd say that's one of the things that distinguishes us from other companies that are growing fast in ed tech. We built a product for everybody. The original demographic is anybody who likes collecting things. Functionally, what we see in our demographic data is that we're split very equally, men, women. They tend to be people that are educated, and they tend to, organize. It's amazing the number of topics that we have. You have 60 million organized objects. It grows by one a second. And I mean, every time I do a search for somebody else where I say, what are you interested in? And I type it in, I'm surprised at the depth that there is now. So it's kind of everything and everybody. But we know from our social signals that teachers have, in particular, really adopted this product both for themselves and also to use with their classes.
I'm looking at it from the point of view of online course creators as well as teachers. So if somebody's trying to create a course online, I can see this as a resource, but can you create an actual course? Like, how would an online course creator or teacher use this?
So we see this first and foremost as a way for you to organize those kinds of resources, whether you use them to prepare lessons or to use them as an actual means of presenting a lesson, I think really depends more on you as a teacher. The product isn't purpose-built to put lessons in front of people or to have, editable tests within the product, but we do allow you to share any kind of a document in such a way that if you wanted to produce, for example, a course with all the resources as well as the different things that were needed to be done, task assignments, you could upload and put all of those in a collection and present it to your students. If it was upper level students, you could simply share the collection with them and say, here's your resources and your assignments. We've seen it done like that before. We've also seen it used as an assignment to actually put your research there so that the product is simply a platform for proving you know how to do something. And then another use case that we've seen is actually one of e-portfolios that are portable so that a student can start in one grade, create a structure for their account with all their lessons, all their results, everything broken down however the teacher sees fit. And then that can be handed from one teacher to the next as a student moves through grades, for example.
So there's a way to structure it so that there is a bit of a sequence to the way that the content is delivered.
Yes.
Also, that leads me to another question. I mean, if we talk about, say, YouTube or Vimeo, there are video places where you can store video and then you can embed those videos into a page, a protected page, for example. Can you do something similar with Pearltrees?
Absolutely. Yes, we have embed codes that can be customized as well as have standard sizes, and they work with most popular content management systems.
So WordPress is not a problem?
Not a problem. No, in fact, we're optimized. That the only caveat there is that blogs that are hosted by WordPress, in other words, blog.wordpress.com, WordPress has very strict restrictions on live embeds, and Automatic has to approve those, and we haven't ever gone through that final process, but it tends to be a pretty small part of our user base. Most people have their own blog. It's not hosted at WordPress. But other than that, we work pretty much everywhere.
That's great. I don't use WordPress.com. I always self-host. Yeah, I like the control. There are restrictions when you're hosting somewhere else.
Exactly.
You're getting something basically for free, but you're limited by their restrictions.
Of course.
The material that you publish on Pearltrees, can you protect it, or is it publicly available to everybody?
So one of the things that distinguishes our free and our paid accounts is the ability to create private collections, and that only exists for premium users. And our philosophy there is kind of based upon the idea that we're a company that really believes in open source and open knowledge. And so we want the world to benefit from the organization of content. But if you want to keep your content private and the world can't benefit, then we think you should pay a little bit of money to use our platform.
So basically, it becomes like YouTube, where you upload something, and unless you make it private or you pay extra, then everybody can see it.
Exactly. It's an open library.
So is there material there that's available for anybody to use?
Sure. In much the same way that some of these other services let you host, for example, a document or a PDF, and it's an open public PDF or a slide share. It's just that we're enabling that with every single kind of file you could think of.
One of the things that I see, if I go to Pearltrees.com, and I search for something and it's there, it's available. I can see it. If it's a video, I can watch it, or I can see a document or whatever it is. I'm not sure. Is there a way to tell what the copyright is for it?
Unless it was on the physical document, no. We haven't. You asked a question before about some takedown notices and stuff, and we haven't really had that issue. I would say partially because the company is based in Paris, and I think we're not at a scale like YouTube where the copyright holders freak out. To tell you the truth, the biggest area where I think we probably would have that issue would be with ebooks. There's an incredibly large community, particularly in Europe, that really likes to collect and share ebooks. And so there's kind of a large contingent of users that are putting ebooks in, and I have many ebooks in the product, but they're ebooks that I own, and I keep them private to myself so I don't violate the author's copyright. But just like the rest of the internet, I'm sure that there's stuff there that if a copyright holder found it, they would ask us to take it down. But it hasn't been an issue, and we have several million of users now. And I deal with any kind of an issue like that in English, and I haven't had those.
So basically, you have to, as a user of Pearltrees, you have to make sure that what you're putting up there, you own the copyright to it, or it's publicly available and usable.
Yes, and there is so the other thing is that we don't handle very, very large files right now, and so probably the biggest risk to those kinds of copyright problems happen around videos, movies that people have downloaded through BitTorrent or whatever. And because of some file size limitations at the moment, we don't have an issue like that.
So anybody can use Pearltrees. You can create lots of different types of content, videos, documents. How is this different from Evernote?
Well, that's an interesting question, and we get it asked a lot, because I would say that Evernote plays somewhat in the same space, but they're really not solving the same problem. And by the way, I'm an Evernote user. I pay for Evernote. I really like it. I find I rely on it more now than I did 2 or 3 years ago, in fact. But it's not the same thing. I mean, Evernote is really designed for you to be able to capture bits of information that maybe don't even necessarily relate well to each other, but always find them back because of their tagging and their search conventions, because that information is also on your computer. And so I consider Evernote my power note-taking tool. It's sort of where my action items for the day are. But it's not a great library. I mean, you can't it's not a storage utility, so you're not going to be uploading tons of documents to it. It's not visible in the same way where you can structure collections and see how things relate. So I think that Evernote is sort of a powerful note-taking productivity tool. I know they're shifting more towards being a business tool, but we're really very different. I would say that that there is no product available right now that is directly similar to us. And in fact, when I try to get people to understand what we are now, I say, well, imagine that Pinterest and Dropbox got together and had a baby that did more than either. That's kind of where we are.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned connections, because if I look back and I look at the previous incarnation of Pearltrees, one of the things that people really seemed to like was the mind mapping type of structure with the content. Now, recently, Pearltrees went through a major upgrade on the front end. It looks like the back end is, pretty 95% the same code, but the front end was improved. So now you can use it anywhere. There's an app or iOS, Android. You can basically use Pearltrees anywhere. But one of the things that changed was kind of the mind mapping look and feel from the front end. Now, some people don't like that, and some people, like it. So what's your take on that?
So it's a great question. I'm glad you asked, because it's one I get asked from time to time. And let me first tell you so we didn't set out when we created Pearltrees version 1 to build a mind mapping tool. And I say that as a guy that loves mind maps. Anybody that is familiar with David Allen's work knows that much of his thinking is driven by mind maps. And in fact, there are many great companies that build mind maps that GTD kinds of people love. So I'm a guy that likes and understands mind maps. But what we discovered was, and I was one of the principal people driving this discovery, because I was doing in-person user tests, many hundreds of them over the time just before we launched the new version, was that, well, the creator of a mind map really can appreciate the structure that they've built, and it's highly utilitarian for them because they understand it. If you put someone else's mind map in front of a third party, it's confusing. They have to try to sort out the other person's logic first. And that's work, and people don't like that. And so what we found was that while we certainly managed to attract a very, very lively and engaged community, what we weren't seeing was the kind of traction that we needed to grow to a massive scale. We built a beautiful product for a narrow audience. But that wasn't our objective. Our objective was to democratize the organization of knowledge. And so we looked at the web carefully and what standards people liked. And we also looked at the capabilities of the different platforms. You asked about Flash versus HTML5 and some notes. And we wanted to be more universal. We wanted to be faster. We didn't build an HTML5 at the beginning because it didn't exist. And even when it did, it wasn't mature enough to do the kinds of visualizations that we were doing in Flash. But we also understood that Flash had become a liability. And so it was actually a massive undertaking because not only did we have our web product with over 1 million users, but we also had Android and iOS. And so we were supporting all these platforms. They all required massive re-architecting, both on the front and the back end. And so we took 6 months to completely rebuild our UI across the board, and worked very hard to give parity to the apps so that the apps and the web all did essentially the same things. And we've worked very hard to bring every feature that was available on the most mature platform, which was the web, to our mobile device platform. And we're very close now. It's not perfect, but it's very close. And you also had asked a little question. I'm jumping ahead for you, but since we're talking about the apps, what you can do differently with the apps, well, accessing the camera is probably the most powerful thing. And for those of you that take a lot of pictures, it's an amazing resource because you can select all the pictures that are on your device, bring them into Pearltrees, get them off your device, and now you can really view and organize them. And personally, as a guy that I have 26,000 photos in my account, and they're organized. And I don't think there are many people that could say they have 26,000 organized photos.
That's an interesting one because I have tons of photos, say on my iPhone or iPad, but an easy way to upload them. A lot of people use Flickr or some other service, but a lot of times you have to individually select the pictures and then upload them. Is there a way that the app for Pearltrees just says, okay, just upload all the photos?
So that's a feature which I'm pushing for very hard because it's exactly what I want. Today that does not exist, although you can grab for example, if you have photos synced to your hard drive, you can select them all and bring them into your Pearltrees account with one drag. But from a device right now, you have to individually tap the photos. But that is something that will change, and it'll be automated in the same way, for example, that you can have Dropbox automatically or Facebook automatically collect your photos. The difference, of course, is that once those photos are in Pearltrees, you'll actually be able to see them without having to open the file, and you can organize them in any order that you want.
That brings me to another question. Once the content is actually in Pearltrees, are you able to export it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. We support export, download, you can duplicate the structure of your account with an RDF, or you can, we're all about open data. We never trap your data in a silo. We don't want to make it hard to get your stuff back out. In fact, it's probably the opposite. It's you can take something out of your account from wherever you are, even a device that doesn't support the file type.
That's excellent. Let's recap what's free and what's included in the premium membership.
So the biggest differences, there are some small differences about features and customization and things, but the really critical differences are that on the premium memberships, you can have unlimited private collections and unlimited private teams. And there are 3 different sizes of data plans that go with the 3 different premium account types. We have a personal account, advanced, and then a professional. Starts at $1.99 and 25 gigs of storage, and it goes all the way up to $9.99 and a terabyte of storage.
Wow, 1 terabyte.
Yes.
So what does that cost, 1 terabyte?
$9.99 a month. It's the same, I think, as Dropbox charges for 100 gigs.
Wow.
Yeah, we're competitive with Google Drive for the amount of storage that we offer for the price, but the real advantage is that you can see every single file where it sits. You don't have to open it. So, one of the weaknesses of a lot of these online file storage systems is it's very hard to quickly see what's in the account, and opening documents takes time because they're not on your device.
So I wonder, with 1 terabyte of storage, if people have tried to use that storage in kind of unique ways, such as, for example, storing a backup of your hard drive or storing podcast episodes and then streaming them from there.
So we wouldn't probably at this point be good to back up your whole hard drive because we don't do what Dropbox does, which runs a local program. on your computer. And so we don't have the capability to, for example, drag a bunch of stuff from your Finder into a Pearltrees file that's living in your file manager and have that folder structure sync to the cloud. We may do that in the future. We're looking at that as an option. But right now, people more selectively import files in ways that are more meaningful to them. We see ourselves not so much as just a backup drive or an archive, but as the living part of your library. I like to think of it as the bookshelf that you have in your living room for the books you want to show off.
In terms of the shareability of the content, I mean, this is one of the things that Dropbox and a lot of these other storage services tout, is that you can easily share content. You can send a link to a particular document or something that's stored there. Is that similar with Pearltrees?
Oh, our sharing, I would say, is even more seamless because remember, Dropbox and products like that, which are excellent products, are really designed first and foremost for private file management and small group file sharing. And we're built the other way. We're entirely public. So we let you share collections directly to Twitter, to Facebook, to many of the popular services that are out there, Google+, Reddit, just with a click. We support the embed of collections, and we're focused on the presentation of a collection for, the value of the entire collection, not an individual file or document. So yeah, our sharing, it's fully collaborative. You can team up. You can also follow a collection if maybe you're not an expert on something, but you want to see what other people are collecting. You can do all of those things in our product in ways that, you could only follow a person, but not a collection in, any other product.
Having a technical background and being from the corporate IT world, I always look at the performance of server side of things. And if I look at Pearltrees and I ask you a question, like, what's the performance like? You see, lots and lots of people are sharing content and streaming content and using Pearltrees, and you have lots and lots of users. Are there any issues in terms of performance? Say, I want to stream something that I've stored on Pearltrees on my website. There's no stuttering, there's no issues that way. Tell me more about the performance.
Yeah, I haven't experienced any. I can tell you that when we went to HTML5, we had a 10 times improvement in speed. So it's really dramatically fast. If you look at us on websites that sort of rank the performance of websites, we do very well. It does depend a little bit on the size of your account, but even an account like mine, which is a massively large account for our product, has very good performance. I would say that like any product, there's a point at which it doesn't scale great. We had one user that had 200,000 items in their account, and every single one of those items needed to load a little thumbnail every time that they load their account. And so there was some performance issues that we're dealing with on an account like that, but it's very unusual. When it comes to watching a video that's in your account or something like that, it's really no problem. At least I'm in the US and I know that we're optimized well. We use Amazon CDN in the US and it's pretty performant.
So what's the number one reason that everybody should be using Pearltrees?
Well, I think everybody has knowledge that they want to organize and potentially share. And this is a super easy, super intuitive, very beautiful way to always have access to the stuff that interests you. And I think it's one of the few places where you can really take advantage of people that share your interest, and instead of following the person, follow the topic, so that you get just pure signal and not the noise of, somebody that maybe is an expert on Bitcoin, but also talks all day about politics and cigars, and you don't care about politics or cigars. You just want to learn about Bitcoin. Well, you could follow that guy's Bitcoin collection and never hear about the other stuff.
Can you have multiple personalities on Pearltrees, or do you have one profile and then everybody sees all your content?
So there's several different ways that people could use Pearltrees to present themselves differently, right? First of all, you could have one account that has many different collections that represent different sides to your interests or personality. But we have no restriction on the number of accounts you can have with a single email address. So perhaps you have a personal account, a professional account, one that's more for collaboration. We don't care. We just want our users to be able to access our product how they want to.
So where can people reach you to connect with you online?
So me personally, I'm at OWSTARROW Starr on Twitter. And to reach the team at Pearltrees, it's simply participation@pearltrees.com.
Well, thank you very much, Oliver, for being on the show. And this is, I think, something that's going to be very useful to a lot of people. So Pearltrees, check it out.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, just subscribe to the podcast and future episodes will be downloaded automatically for you. Check out the show notes at educationhackers.com to get links to resources we talked about in this episode. See you next time.